Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the 7 deadly sins of business ownership with Michael Filosi. In this episode, we're going to outline the 7 most common mistakes dental practice owners make that absolutely sabotages their practice. Make sure you tune in to ensure you don't make these mistakes. Michael, welcome to the program, mate. Good to have you back.
Thanks, Jesse. Looking forward to this.
Mate, I always enjoy our conversations, and we were talking offline about an interesting topic, and we came up with this concept of 7 deadly sins. And I wanted to talk a bit about why you feel these sins are important to talk about, and I'm using the word sins in air quotes. What is it about these particular things, just to, I suppose, pre-frame our conversation, that you think is really useful?
It's funny, when we were throwing this idea around, and it got my juices flowing, and I was thinking about it. So I was actually going to the footy, and I was on the train, and I was typing them out and trying to think of ideas of what fundamentally are the 7 sins of business ownership. And I think it's good to think in frameworks, right? And I think that helps to have some real clear guardrails. And these sorts of things are helpful, because rather than just winging it and going, I'll learn as I go, and you find all the pitfalls, I think if you've got some clear frameworks to work from, and in this case, I guess some things to avoid, it makes life easier because you've got a bit of a clear path forward moving forward. So when you enter that journey of business ownership, or if you're in the journey of business ownership, you've got some clear red flashing lights of knowing when you get close to avoid them. Yeah,
it's really interesting you say that as well, because one of my philosophies has been that if you can eliminate mistakes from your journey, you're actually halfway, or probably 90% of the way, to achieving your goal. If you just don't mess up, you're basically going to be okay.
Exactly right. So I think you can look at it 2 ways. You can go, righto, how do you have a successful business? Cool, you can look at that. But the flip side is like, what makes businesses fail? Yeah. And avoid those things, and you're a long way there. So I think it's just turning it on its head and going, instead of going, how do I have this? How do I do this? Is it, what does bad look like? Cool, I'll avoid bad.
Yeah. And Warren Buffett has that wonderful saying, the rules of investing. Rule number 1 is don't lose money. Rule number 2 is refer to rule number 1, right? And it's 100%. Kind of, I think what we're trying to say here is, you can achieve a lot if you just don't mess up. And so we'll get into that. All right, mate, let's get into these 7 deadly sins. 7 deadly sins, with sin number 1 being the sin of not driving high standards and accountability. Okay, because standards are important. The standard that you walk past is the standard you accept, all those sorts of things. I have some very strong views about standards, but I'd really like to get your take on why you see standards and accountability being so important.
It's a good one. I guess all these things are through learned experience. And I guess what I notice is that those who drive high standards get them. Yeah. And those who don't really care get low standards. So it really is a case of people will meet you where you are. And I found that myself. If I was very exacting in what I expected of my team, and they met me there. And I sort of feel that the people who have high standards of those around them end up getting better performance from those around them than those who don't. So I think it's almost like the fundamental rule, right, is to have high standards. And I think that word, you taught me this, Jesse, and it stuck with me, is the standard, not a goal. These aren't aspirational things. So, that's courtesy of Jesse. That was something that stuck with me. So when we talk about these things, if you've got your golden rules or the standards, it's not, I got 3 out of 5 today or 4 out of 5 today. Either it's green light or red light. You either did it or you didn't. So I think that's the thing as well. Like an 8 out of 10 is not a pass. A 7 out of 10 is not a pass. It's yes or no. Did you rock up at work on time or did you not? Like 30 seconds late is 30 seconds late. So I think that's almost fundamental to everything I've done and everything I believe in, is the fact that, driving high standards and accountability underpins everything. And it's sort of, the ultimate sin of, if you don't do that, of business ownership. What are your thoughts, Jesse? You tend on the same path?
I am very much on the same path, mate. I think we're brothers from another mother, to be honest. But in lots of ways, I mean, the fact that you're 6 foot whatever and I'm 5 foot whatever is just a minor point, right? Michael's very tall, I'm very short, so maybe there's some genetics going on there. But I think one of the things that I find about standards is really interesting, and you're right. I think the goal versus standard is really important. That came from when we were creating scorecards and all the rest. I used to use the word goal, and we got into this habit of, we nearly did it, we almost got there. And you're like, hang on, what are we doing? But I think the difficulty that I've experienced, and again, I'm interested in your thoughts around this, is when standards aren't met. How do you maintain those standards? How do you create a culture around performance? How do you do those things? I've recently changed my mind on a couple of things.
Yeah, cool.
And I always used to think, a family type culture, and you treat your team as you would a family and all those sorts of things. And on one level, I like the ideal behind that, but I was also reading Netflix's culture doc, and they talk about the culture being that of a high performance team. You've got to almost fight for your position on the team. So I kind of like that. What's your take?
It's really interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast yesterday, non-dental, and a friend of mine was on, and he talked about, he went through something really similar, and he's got a really impressive marketing agency here in Adelaide. And he said he used to take that view of family as well, but now he takes it as a sports team, right? So, I think in a family, you're accepting of any behavior, basically. In business, you shouldn't be. I think there's a key difference there in terms of, so very much I'm the latter, not the former. I never saw business. I think you want to be friendly with your team, but not friends, right? Like I didn't want to be out drinking with them, right? And I think that, driving high standards, it's like, I think you've got to call it out early as well if they don't get there. And one of the things I'm fond of, at least thinking, maybe always not saying, but, if someone says, oh, look, my dog had this sickness and this isn't going well with my kids. It's like, my view is you're paid 100% of your wage for 100% of your effort.
Yeah.
Right? So, if you're off, tell me how much you're off, 20%, and we'll dock your wage by that much. Now, of course you can't do that, but it makes the point, right? It's like, look, I'll pay you your full wage, but I expect full performance and full accountability here. Like, if all you've got is excuses, I can't go, oh, look, bad week, didn't make much, so, you might earn a little bit less. Good luck, right? So, I think that the other thing I'd say is, you're not paid to, this is the thing I'd say to my team, or I feel really strongly, right? And I think as business owners, you've got to hold this view is you're not paid to do your job, you're paid to do your job well.
Yes.
And I think that's really important with your team. It's like, you're not paid to do the job. It's that if they're just doing enough to scrape by and not get fired, it's not enough. So when someone goes, oh, I'm doing a job really well, can I have a pay rise? Well, you're paid to do your job well, that's the whole point. If you're not doing it well, then see you later, there's the door, So I think accountability and driving high standards are crucial. I think you get what you put out. I know even with those it's funny, Jesse, with suppliers and with those you deal with, so, not your team necessarily, but those you deal with, I know that I'm not always the most popular person with the supplier companies and things, but I also know they respect me. End of the day, they go, do you know what? Filosi did some pretty impressive things, and he also holds himself to those high standards. So yeah, he can be a bit of a pain when he holds us to account when we'd rather just take it easy, but the guy's right, and he doesn't ever ask anything of others that he wouldn't do of himself. So I think, driving those high standards, you just get what you put out, right? And I think that if you're willing to accept less than, you end up, it creates more of less than. Whereas I think if you have high standards, you will invariably get that back.
100%. So there's a couple of things I want to just touch on for a second, mate, because you said something I think really interesting, and that was you're not expecting someone to uphold a standard you wouldn't hold yourself, right? So this concept of self-leadership, I think, is really important, being the exemplar of the standard. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about self-leadership, and then I want to try and, just while we're talking about standards, I want to talk about documentation and communication of standards as well, because again, some of the things that fall down, poor communication and so on. So firstly, exemplar, and then how do you communicate?
Love both of those things, Jesse. And again, 100% on board for both of those. So you have to demonstrate. So leadership and being that exemplar, right? Like I'm not a natural leader or somebody who can give a rah-rah rallying cry, but what you can always do, like effort doesn't take skill, right? So you're either trying or you're not. So I think you can lead by demonstrating the behavior that you want to see in your team. So if you're a business owner and you expect certain things, customer first and working hard, then you need to demonstrate that. Because it lacks authenticity. If you're expecting high standards but not delivering that yourself, you're stuffed, right? Like, because your team, they see you asking for one thing but demonstrating something else. Very briefly, I remember we had graffiti on one of the walls. It was like a 42-degree day, and I was out there scrubbing it, right? And no one else wanted to go outside because it was so hot even to walk down the street to get a coffee. But I'm not silly. I knew where the staff room window was. I knew they could all see me, and I wanted them to go, that's the owner, and he's out there busting his guts on a 42-degree day trying to remove this graffiti. So next time he says, hey, look, hard work's really important, putting in, they're not going to go, oh, but you don't do that, Michael, are they? So being that exemplar, absolutely. If you're not up to it, forget it. Don't ask high things of your team if you're not doing it yourself, because they're people, it doesn't work.
How do you then communicate those standards? We like scorecards in Savvy Land. So how did you do it?
So I think when I was younger, I made a really big error with one of my nurses, is that what I expected wasn't clear.
Yeah.
And she pulled me up on it, and she was right. She said, Michael, I don't know where the goalposts are. I feel like everything you ask of me, I try and do, and then you ask me to do something else. And I was like, she's right, So I think what I do is two things. I front end it. So I think you've got to have the discussions right at the start before they even get the job of say, here are our expectations. And this is going to come in a bit later, but I ask them to opt in. So rather than trying to twist their arm, it's like, are you in agreement with this or not? If you are, we can rock and roll. If not, then there's no place for you here. I think, Jesse, the thing, what I found is really helpful, and I hope the listeners get something out of this, is I would write, what does high performance look like in brackets role?
Yep.
Okay, so for a dentist, what does high performance look like in dentist? What does high performance look like in dental assistant? And then just riff on that and write them all down, and then guess what? You give it to them. So standards are really clear. So for the dentist, okay, what a high performance looks like. It might be you're rebooking X% of patients. You're building your own books. You get along with the team. You're receptive to feedback. So make it really clear in your own head too of like, what does high performance look like in role X, Y, and Z? Riff on that, and then there's your document. There's your standards, and you can communicate that really clearly and go, this is it. This is what you're going to be judged on. This is what we expect, yay or nay.
Yeah, I really love that, mate. And I like the idea of front-ending that as well, because one of the things that I think goes awry very quickly is when people come in, it's not communicated clearly. And you're right, the lack of clarity doesn't help. And to be clear is to be kind as well, I think, is a saying that I've heard a lot. And I think I buy into that as well. But front-ending it, documenting it, communicating it, and then living it yourself. I think really that's setting the culture. And we know culture is ultimately a set of values and behaviours. And if you communicate the values and you exhibit the behaviours, then you're going a long way to getting there.
Agree.
All right, mate. So let's talk about sin number 2, the sin of not knowing your numbers. This is going to be a juicy one because I love this. This is, numbers and Excel are my friends. Tell me about your thinking on this.
Yeah, I just love numbers. Like, I think that I just, what can I say? Like, I'm a numbers guy, and they mean everything, right? And I think it's like you need to, any high performance organization measures its numbers. So if you're in a Formula One team, say, they've got stacks of data. They're measuring lots of things of times and performance and things like that there. So you're flying blind. It's like playing chess with half the board covered if you don't track your numbers right. So you don't actually know what's fully going on, right? So imagine trying to play chess and imagine trying to play a good player, but half the board is covered and you can't see those pieces. That's kind of what it's like running a business and not having full awareness of your numbers. So, if you're in business, you're not just in the business of that technical thing. You need to get good at business itself, and it's a numbers game, and you've got to know them and know, I think as well, analysis paralysis. You can look at too many. There's so many metrics, but figure out what matters, figure out what moves the needle. What are your goals, and then what are the critical drivers, which is another thing you taught me, that are going to get you there, rather than tracking, the use of composite resin on a Thursday morning in the hygiene room when, who cares? So figure out the big levers that matter and track them fastidiously. I like rolling averages too. I think trend lines are important.
Oh, yeah.
So discrete data in and of itself isn't that helpful, but the analytics is, we kind of had, the crystal ball, so you could see the trend lines and things, and you kind of get an idea. If someone was about to leave as well, you'd see their billings drop off and you'd see that trend line. So trend lines are super important, and trend lines tell you what's going on and often tell you why, and you can track it among providers as well. Is this a practice thing, or is this just an individual here whose numbers are going down? So trend lines are super important, as well as the raw numbers, because they tell you what they mean.
Yeah, 100%. Like, the trend is your friend, right? You can see where you're going with that. Again, for those that are a little averse to numbers, I just want to make the point that the language of business is maths, and the numbers tell the story of your business. And I'm just going to say this really candidly. It's going to probably ruffle a feather or two, and I apologize if that's your feathers, but I kind of feel like this is the unvarnished truth. If you're not willing to know your numbers, you don't really have a right to be in business. Probably sounds a little bit forthright and direct, but at the end of the day, you're putting so much capital at risk. You're putting effort and time and energy into this thing. And it's a lot to put on the line. So if you're not willing to know your numbers, then don't put your capital at risk. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. And so many people wing it. So many people, fly blind, as you say. I wanted to dive into the critical drivers for a minute, Michael, because I think you've picked up a really important point. Most people track their numbers after the fact. Most people track their results, whether it's, the revenue for the month or whatever it is. But very few people track the activities that produce those results. And, if we look at those activities and we're to 80-20 of them, the 20% of the activities that produce 80% of the result are those critical drivers, the high-value activities. Just so we can give an example to the audience and to the listeners, what are a couple of critical drivers or activities that you measured in your practice, relatively routinely, so that, again, just to make that example, because I think you're right there, the big levers.
Look, I think, so candidly, I wasn't always the best at the predictive ones, and my practice manager actually gave me a prompt to look at the forecasting and how to do that. So it's a really good point. And that's something, if I had my time over, I would have spent more time on not just what's happened, but also, hey, how do we predict going forward? I think handovers are super important and rebooking rates. And I know it's sort of unsexy, right? But, it's funny. This morning I was thinking, there was a regular coffee shop that I'd go to just about every day. And I was a regular. And they would expect me to come back. And I haven't been back in a while. And the coffee's just gone off the not quite as good. But they'll never know the last time I went in there. They'll never think that was the last time, but there was a last time. And I think that with patients as well, you got to think that, every patient is like a little piece of gold, that adds value to your business. So if you see a piece of gold walk out the door, you want to know when you're going to see it next, right? And you want that booked in, not just, see you later and expect them to come back. So it's a really interesting exercise. If you just expect people to come back, or you think, they're loyal, they'll come back, or they're this, they've been coming here forever. Well, sometimes they don't. And you need to be clear on when they are coming back. So I think rebooking rate is super important, right? And I think that making sure every patient leaves with the next appointment booked in is absolutely critical, because that's sowing the seeds for the future. That to me, above anything else, is really key, because if you can not lose patient at all, then you're not going backwards, right? You're going to be 100%. Growing any new patient you get. And like you say, imagine how big your practice would be or your business if you never lost a customer, So that's
the gut punch question, that one. That's one of my favorite questions. And, it's a punch in the guts.
It is. And it's funny, when I started off at my practice, Jesse, and it was on the paper cards, and I was going through the old ones, throwing them out, and the ones that you could by law and all those things. But what I noticed was, I was always curious, right, that there are a whole lot that hadn't been back in a while, but you look at their last visit, and I guarantee when they left the door that time, I guarantee that the clinician, the receptionist thought they'd be back, and they didn't. They never came back. So, and it just struck me that at this point, there was a moment here when they could have rebooked, or they could have been, had some sort of point of contact or given a reason to return, and they weren't. And you'd see all these patients, next visit this, and then you're like, they've been coming, never come back. So really hammering that home is super important. And I think that particularly when you are busy and business is going well, don't disregard it. Don't think we're flying here. I don't need to worry so much about it. Really nail that. And I think it's, you wrote a book on it, retention, right? It's the key to the castle.
It's like we said at the beginning, just don't go backwards, don't mess up, don't stub your toe. Look, Michael, you've identified what I believe is the keystone metric in a general practice. That rebooking rate, that ability to retain your patients, if all else fails, you still have the patient in the practice and you get another crack, right? But the moment 100%. They don't come back, well, you're in a pickle. So yes, totally. Love it, mate. I'm really interested on this next one, because this is something that I observed you do really well. And this is the sin of key person dependency. This is sin number 3, key person dependency. I watched you go from working, I don't know how many days at the beginning. Was it 4 or 5 or something? 4, yeah. Down to none, right? So correct. You removed that key person dependency around yourself entirely. I remember you describing your revenue contribution as a rounding error, which then contributed to enormous enterprise value. So you got the exit that you were hoping for. I want to talk a little bit about obviously what key person dependency is, but I want to talk about how you did that, because I think most people listening to this go, yeah, okay, I get it. Don't be too dependent, but how? What's the strategy? And you did it. So
Yeah, look, I did. So for those listings, I was 40% of our revenue at one point, and then I gradually got off the tools, and at the end I was 0.6% of the revenue. So that's not 6%, that's 60 cents in every $100. So a rounding error, right? Less than 1%.
Yeah.
I did it because, a true business, right? The business has a value. Like the business in and of itself should have a value. And if you are, or anyone is as critical to that business in the sense that if you're not there or you stop doing that, then the business value drops, then that is a risk. And if you're looking to sell something that has such a key person dependency that if one person, the whole thing falls over if this person leaves, the value of that thing drops dramatically if it is dependent on one person, because no one's going to risk their own capital and buy the business if there's a single person who, if they leave there, the whole thing's cooked, right? So my view was I wanted to reduce that, right? I wanted to make sure that there was not just me, but no one was the business wasn't key person dependent. And I think this is absolutely a sin is, particularly as dentists, we like to be the main man or the main woman and have everyone ask us questions and things like that. Yeah, good. It's great for your ego, horrible for your bank balance, right? And it's horrible for that end stage when you want to actually get that value back that you've put in, not just as an income from working as a dentist, but hopefully you've got something to sell at the end. And that doesn't happen if all roads lead to you. If you're the central hub on that spoke, on that central hub on that wheel, then your business isn't worth potato chips, right, by comparison. So that's what I went about and figured that out and thought everyone else can have the glory. I just want the money. At the end of the day, like when it comes to sell, like I don't mind if the patients all love you, other clinicians and all those things. Cool, happy days. Like I'm happy for them, but I'm busting my guts so hard. I actually want something to show for this. I need a return on investment. So super critical here. So those listening, right? Like if you want to create something of value, make yourself independent of the critical operations of the business, such that you have a business that you can then sell that's not dependent on you, and you can demonstrate that to the buyer. So for me, when it came time to buy, I could make the case. So I very rarely was able to sell and walk in, walk out. So no clawbacks, no retention period, no earn out. I said, here's the keys, off you go, and I could make a case for that. So it just makes logical sense to me, right? That if the business relies on you, you've got a high paying job. You don't really have a business, you've got a high paying job, right? Versus if you've got a true business, then it should not be incredibly dependent on any one individual, including yourself.
When you were at 4 days or doing 40% of the revenue, obviously to go from 40% to 0.6% is a significant drop. And I know you didn't do it in one fell swoop. What were the stages and the steps you did? Did you kind of slowly wind down? I remember we had a conversation about one-way doors and two-way doors. What I think you did really, really well, you did lots of things really, really well, but you didn't fall into the trap of going back in.
100%.
So I want to talk a bit about that if we can, because there must have been moments when it would have been easy to.
And again, Jesse, we're kind of, you make the point, you can't be on, first base and second base at the same time. You can't get your foot off first base, get halfway to second, they go, oh, hang on, I'm going to run back. And I think lots of dentists do that, right? They're like, oh, I'm going to get off the tour, I'm going to go less working days. They do it. And oh, no, the whole thing's falling apart. The business needs you. So I think it's a real fault of the owner. Like, my team were good, but there was nothing specific about them that made it possible. I just committed to doing it. And then, you need a plan. So I went from 4 days, then I think a year later I went to 3 days, and then to 2 days, and then to 0. And so I did it bit by bit. And as one thing goes down, the other ones go up, and you keep building, keep growing, track your numbers. So you need to know that you can replace your own income and build it out with the work and exertion of others, So it's really just like a little science experiment that you're kind of tweaking the test tubes and figuring out what's going to get the best result there. But you've really got to commit and be serious about it and not take a backward step. And like, it's really odd, Jesse. And I never did want to jump back in, to be honest. Like, I think once I might have worked a few days just to fill in when someone was sick all of a sudden, and I'd still, but I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I realized the less clinical dentistry I did, the happier I was. So I was like, every time I seem to reduce my days, I seem to be happier. Like, this is a pretty good metric for life and things. So, but you've got to build up those around you, because you can't replace your own, if you're paying someone to do what you used to do and you've got to pay them, then you're obviously not getting that big chunk of money, and you're just taking the margins. You need to build everything else out around you to do it.
Yeah, 100%. It's really funny, mate. I went and did some work, and I think I was only doing hygiene because that's probably all I'm good for these days. But what was interesting, since I wore my loupes last, I've got prescription glasses. So it was either a choice of prescription glasses or loupes. I'm thinking, okay, that's a sign.
Yep, that's it.
If ever there was the world trying to give me a signal, that was it. Just on your last point, this is a really interesting point. Now, I want to actually labour on this because there's a little bit of maths involved here.
Yeah.
The mathematics is this, and again, I think we need to kind of be really clear on this. If you're the dentist as the owner and you go and bill $100, basically you get to keep that $100, right? And of course, you're going to pay some expenses of staff and whatever else, right? But if you get $100 from an associate, you're going to pay them 40% or whatever commission that you pay them, 35, 40, whatever. So you're left with the balance, out of which you still need to fund things. So it's not a one-for-one replacement. And if your associates are billing the same as you, the rule of thumb is for every day you take off, you got to replace it with 2 associate days, right? It's a really rough rule of thumb. And it's predicated on them billing as high as you. And they might not be billing as high as you. So maybe it's a 1-to-3 ratio, but you got to know that ratio, right?
Totally. I actually think I'd almost feel like it's closer to 1-to-3 in my opinion than 1-to-2. But you've got to grow the pie, right? So you can't be, if you're a single chair practice or a 2-chair practice, you're like, you know what, I'm going to work, let's get someone else in. You're going to take a massive haircut financially. Because like you said, you're paying someone else to do the work and you're just taking that business owner's margin. So the only way it works is if you're growing the whole thing. So you're taking a margin from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different surgeries, That's how you replace a dentist's income, not by as a 2-chair thing and thinking you can scrape by. It ain't going to work, right?
No.
People aren't going to work for peanuts. So the only way it works is at some degree of scale.
Yes.
Simple as that.
100%.
And you've got to figure out that crucial element of scale. As I said, I reckon it's at least 1-to-3. I think that, I think that earning a margin off of 3 dentists or 3 is maybe even 1-to-4. But anyway,
could be
it's somewhere. It's I think particularly because the cost of doing business is going up. So the cost of, so you need to grow the pie, right? You're not going to do it with a 1 or a 2-chair practice. You need to do it at scale, which means that as you're going off, you can't just have someone replace you, but you're going to be having someone else come on board as well. 100%. So the whole thing gets bigger. That's the only way it works.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you're right, it probably is 1-to-3 or more, but you got to know what you're billing, what they're billing.
Totally.
You just got to do the maths, right, and figure out what it is. And then you'll know, like if I'm going to take a day off, I need to replace it with 2, 3, 4 associate days, whatever the number is for you in your practice. You got to know that number because at the end of the day, if you don't know that number, you're going to go backwards financially, as you say.
It is nice, when you do take a day off and you do start to reduce those days and you still see the money coming in and going, wow, like I haven't been on the tools and I'm going to take home some money. That's a pretty cool feeling. Like it's not money for nothing, but it kind of feels that way sometimes of like, hey, I didn't have to drill, fill and build to earn some money today. Like it's actually working independent of me. So it's a nice feeling too, but do it gradually, but have a plan, work to that and get your head around the fact that your patients will see other people, like everyone thinks they won't, they absolutely will. Like that's just rubbish. And it's just a mental block in your own head. So if you're sitting there going, oh, my patients won't, you're wrong. Just simple as that. You're wrong, right? I've done it. I was had 400 plus 5-star Google reviews for me. So pull your head out of your own backside, frankly, and pardon my language, but like this idea of, it's just rubbish. Like all my patients won't see anyone else. I've done it. It happens. It works, and there's lots of better dentists clinically than me, but you weren't more popular than me as a clinician. I can assure you that.
Yeah. And just one final thing on this for the audience members is to understand that not every dollar is created equally. Okay. So a personal exertion dollar does not create the same level of enterprise value as a leveraged dollar. It just doesn't. And so you got to know where your dollars are coming from, and key thing.
Very much so.
Alrighty, shall we talk about sin number 4? I'm looking at the pile of books behind you, Michael, which I know is as tall as you. And sin number 4 is not committing to increasing your business IQ. Tell me about this, mate.
So, pondering these and again, wanting to stick to the key elements, right? And I think that, that it's the whole Michael Gerber, the E-Myth thing of like being good at a technical thing does not mean being good at the business of that technical thing. So, if you've got a lawn mowing business and you're the best landscaper and lawn mower in the city, fantastic. Doesn't mean you're good at the business of lawn mowing. If you're building roller doors or installing roller doors, then you can be technically brilliant, but doesn't mean you're good at the business of that thing. Two very discrete, very different skill sets. So if you are going into business in a business of a technical thing, which they all are really, then you need to get good at this thing called business and increase your business IQ, not just your IQ at doing composite resin veneers as a dentist or installing roller doors. You need to improve yourself at business, and that comes through effort, right? And that comes through discretionary effort of doing things that no one else is doing, or things you don't have to. You can get home at night and sit in front of the TV, or you can go, maybe I'll learn more about numbers. Maybe I'll listen to podcasts like this. Maybe I'll try and set up a spreadsheet and things. So I think that it's very much a matter of, it is a skill set, and like any skill, it can be learned. So I think one of the deadly sins of business is not committing to going, I'm going to get good at this thing called business. Not just the good at the technical thing, but good at the actual thing called business, which is separate.
It's really interesting, Michael. And again, I suspect not everyone's going to think this way, feel this way, and that's okay if they don't. For me, I find business immensely stimulating intellectually. Not everyone finds that to be the case. Weirdos, I don't know why, but anyway, I'm joking. But you need to have, even if it's not your natural disposition, if you are in business, you need to have a working knowledge of business. You do need to master these skills. And so are there any particular skills in business or IQ elements that you think are useful that people should master preferentially over others?
I think, to come back to something you said about, I think if you don't find it interesting, you shouldn't be in business. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you're not intrigued by it, and what I see, do you know what I find immeasurably super interesting all of a sudden is when my bank balance goes up and when my net worth goes up. Gee, that's interesting to me. So guess what?
Yes.
Seriously, if you're not paying attention to these things or you think it's not interesting, then what the heck are you doing? Legitimately.
Go and be an associate.
Going and working for 100%. You took the words out of my mouth. Like if you're like, oh, I'm just not that interested in it. It's like, great. There are plenty of good jobs out there where you can go and work as a dentist, as an associate, where you don't need to know this stuff. Like, go do that. Business ownership isn't better or worse, but to kind of do something, if you don't like fire, don't be a firefighter. If you don't like numbers and learning that stuff, then don't get into business. So what can you do? You said to your point about, it all helps, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's a bit like, I read something about, what should you read, in general, in life, if you want to become a reader. It's like, just read what interests you. And I think the same thing with business is that, read something that or get into something. If it's podcasts, if it's audiobooks, like something beats nothing. So make it easy for yourself. If it's on your way to work, whatever, just do something, but get some easy wins, get the stuff that you can actually commit to doing and going, I don't hate this, because you don't just want to go, right, I'm going to read for half an hour a night. First night, oh gee, that's a bit hard. Second night, third night, you stop. Make it easy for yourself. So find something, find a book, find a podcast, find anything that you actually kind of like that you can commit to doing. So I think it's less important what it is. I could give a list of my favorite books, right? But, if someone's going to go, I just ain't going to read that, because invariably, I give away a lot of books as gifts and I'm not sure how many get read, but that's okay. It's nice when they do get read because not everyone's into reading. But I feel that just do something. Do anything that's going to increase your business knowledge and put you further along.
Yeah, mate, I 100% agree with you. You've got to do something that you can sustain and that you enjoy, that you're innately curious about. My wife says to me, don't you get tired of working? I said, I don't actually see it as work, because there's a curiosity, there's
totally.
There's an interest there, and I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. I'm really interested. I mean, this is a small side note. We can probably edit it out, but I'm doing a course through MIT at the moment about agentic AI, and you kind of like, it's really interesting. It's just interesting, right? And maybe this is irrelevant to our conversation, but we can cut it out. But no one asks you to go and do it. You just go, oh, that looks really interesting. There's no one looking over your shoulder to see if you do it or not.
But that's where you get, and I think, it's funny when people say, oh, I work hard, how come I don't have this? How I work hard. It's like, it's the discretionary effort thing, right? It's like, what are you doing? Yeah, okay, you work hard putting up pergolas. Great. So does the next person. But what are you doing above and beyond what they're doing? I work hard as a receptionist. Great. So does every receptionist. Ask them, they're all going to tell you how hard they work. So as a business owner, I work hard. Great. I read my height in business books. who else has done that? Like it's a rare thing. And the people who have done it are super successful. Like it's a marker for this because you don't have to do it. But if you are doing it, it's like, well, that's a completely discretionary thing. So I think, Jesse, to your point about the course you're doing, I think if you can fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, that is super helpful. And I think if what looks like, one of the, I think the keys to my success is what looked like work to others look like fun to me.
100%.
Right? So
every day,
writing all these systems and procedures and having them in a form online where a team could get to it, like that was cool. That was the really fun stuff. Whereas everyone else like, mate, I would not go near that with a 10-foot pole. So I think if you can, fall in love with the problem you're trying to solve, or if what looks like work to you looks like, if what looks like work to others looks like fun to you, happy days. Like that's so cool. So I think if you can find that thing that you are interested in that others think is work, you can make money, be successful, but also keep it fun.
Yeah, I want to just touch on discretionary effort for a minute too, mate, because I think this is a really, really important topic, right? I have a relative, they were in a bit of a pickle and they were explaining this pickle to me. And in essence, they needed some money, right? Yeah, I'm sitting there listening. I'm thinking, well, I could give them the money. I've got the money. And it was on the tip of my tongue to offer, right? And then I don't know why I didn't, but instead I asked, hey, could you pick up some extra shifts at work? Or, hey, maybe what if you just did some Uber driving on the weekend to get this extra money? Or whatever. Oh, look, I'm not really willing to work those long hours. I'm not willing to pick up the extra shift or do the Uber thing or whatever. And all of a sudden I just felt my wallet tighten. My wallet just clammed closed because I just thought, hang on a second, man. I've got the money, but I've kind of put myself there through discretionary effort and you're not willing to help yourself. And I see that in business too. People want to phone it in and expect great rewards, and it doesn't work that way.
So just a couple of things, Jesse. It's kind of funny watching like you think this over and you would have it every time you do a podcast, and I've done a few now, and it's funny because sometimes you think of something and you're doing in your head like the Rolodex of like, oh crap, who's going to listen to this? And you're like, should I? And you would have that and you're like thinking, do I not? How do I frame this? What do I do? What if they hear it? What if I listen? So for people listening at home, that's kind of every time these things come up, you're like, oh, can I say this? Or what if they don't? And you're trying to figure it out on the spot. So kudos to you for jumping in.
Thanks, man.
So, but yeah, totally. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I'd always find it interesting when, and team members go, oh, I work hard. And like I said, yeah, great. That's, you get paid to do your job well, not just to do it. And I think that it's all, there's levels to this thing. Elon Musk sleeps under his desk at work. That's a whole nother level, So like, I've, got the stack of books behind me. And that's the thing. People go, to me, it's about, and the alternate topic for this podcast was going to be, about discretionary effort, right? And we're throwing it around. But I think that people are too easy on themselves. They're too easy to go, oh, I work hard. Oh, what about me? We're not ambitious enough and we're not willing to work and grind through those gears. So, it's interesting when people go, like sometimes, I'll share. So, people go, oh, Michael, you did well because you're clever. And I go, yeah, but there's heaps of clever people, right? And I go, I don't know too many people who've read 2 meters of business books, and the people I do know. So this idea of like, oh, you had it given to you, or you had it easy, or because you're a bit bright, you had it is rubbish, right? It's like, I'm much more someone who, it's what do you do that no one else is willing to do, So if you get up at 4 a.m. and go for a 10K run every morning, for a year, guess what? You're going to be super duper fit, right? And guess what? I don't want to do that. Most people don't want to do that, right? So you're going to be a long, long, long way because of that discretionary effort ahead of everyone else. And it's the same thing with business of if you commit to doing it and not doing the things you need to do. So your work is your work, right? That's great, but that's not discretionary. You do it because you have to, because that's what your job is. Versus things like, reading your high-end business books, it's no one has to do that. No. Most people go their whole careers and never read a single one, right? So, but it's one of those things that you get back what you put in and you get 100%. Back above what you put in. So, I think that in life, we're too easy to mark ourselves easy and go, oh, but I did this. Right. Well, keep going and do it again and read another one and do it again and keep going and get better, So I think, it's funny, you're saying your family member being asked for money and it's like, if you're not going to try and bail yourself out, why should I help you? I think good on you for clamming that wallet shut, because it's like, look, there's other means you can get this. Why don't you, a bit of personal exertion and figure it out? Like, I'm not a bank, so a priority is only a priority if it costs you something. So if you're like, I really need this money, but you're not willing to do anything for it, well, no, it's not a priority. You're not willing to work 100%. For it. So, it's going to cost you something if you're going to open your wallet because you're giving it away. So, like I think that, people are too easy they mark themselves too easy, right? And I think that it's a shame because I think that we should be more ambitious generally in life, and we should have we should have that, the income. I think there should be more income inequality in some ways of like the harder you work, the more money you should get. That's the way it should work. You shouldn't be able to be mediocre at your job or average at your job and earn 2/3 of someone who's a superstar.
Mate, bingo. I've got a saying I heard that just to round out this topic because I think we could probably talk about this for 3 days, and I love this topic because we both get wound up. But here's a quote I heard. It's not mine. I just don't know who to attribute to. When someone says, I'm doing my best, the response is, you're doing your best, but are you doing what's required?
Yeah.
Like, because that's the thing, man. Are you doing what's required?
Exactly right. And I think just to play on that, right, it's the whole thing of like, you don't stop fighting the bear when you're tired. You stop fighting the bear when the bear's tired, right? And it's like that to me, I love that saying. And it's the same thing. I'm doing my best. It's like, I 100% agree, Jesse. You do what's required. It's like, what do you mean you're doing your best? It's like, someone held a gun to your head. You're saying you've got no more effort in you. Probably could. Then you're not doing like there is more in the tank. Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going.
So this idea of people's idea of best, it's like, it's pretty, there's so much more in the tank, right? So unless you can genuinely go, do you know what? I am incapable of doing any more. Like I literally cannot do any more. Then don't say you're doing your best, right? Because if I can outwork you, you're not doing your best, So I think that, it's such an easy fallback. Oh, I'm doing my best. It's like, well, then you have very low standards. Yeah. So I agree. As I said, I like that saying, which is really what you've said, you don't stop fighting the bear when you're tired. I've done my best, bear come. You stop fighting the bear when the bear's tired, and same thing, you don't stop when you've done your best. You stop when the job's done. Job done, job not done, keep going. But I'm tired. What do you mean you're tired? Like, job not done, keep going. So
black or white, mate. Standard.
100%.
It's a standard.
I think, it is. So push on through. Exactly right. It's like you're either there or you're not, and no one gives anything. If you're tired, if you feel like you've done your best, if you want to give yourself a gold star, it's like if the job's not done, job not done. If that bear's still going and you're not, then you're going to get eaten.
Yeah. 100%. All right. All right. Let's leave the discretionary effort to one side for a second and get on to sin number 5, mate. The sin of not finding your first follower. Walk me through your thinking around that.
So my thinking, there's a really good video on YouTube. So if you type in first follower dance.
Yeah, it's great.
It's wicked. It's like the best video on YouTube, I reckon, right? And it's a guy at a music festival and he's dancing like an idiot, right? And someone's videoing it and everyone's looking at him, right? And they're like, whoa, that's a crazy dude dancing. And then like the next person comes up and like dances with him and then like signals to the crowd, hey, here's how you do this dance. And within like 60 seconds, everybody is dancing with that guy, right? And the key point is it's not the original, the guy on his own was just a crazy dancing guy. The person who gave him power was actually the first follower, was the person who went up next to him and said and demonstrated, hey, this is okay, this is cool, let's do this. So what does that mean in business, right? So you can be the crazy dancing guy and trying to do all this stuff, but you need a first follower. You need someone to validate what you're doing. You're going, hey, I'm on board with this. And I was very lucky. My practice manager, Julia, was my first follower and she's a jet, right? And she was absolutely on board for everything I did. And she demonstrated the path forward. She showed others who were, hey, I'm on board with this guy. The way he's doing it is the way we all need to be doing it. And she validated everything that I was trying to do. But I needed that. I needed someone else to be my first follower. In business, you need someone who is all in on you, who is committed to you, who is not advocating for the team or advocating for the others. They'll do that for themselves. You need someone who is all in with you and will demonstrate to the others, this is the path forward. What that crazy dancing guy is doing is the way we all need to be doing crazy dance. Or, hey, this guy's vision for a business is what we all need to buy into. So I really feel this is sometimes overlooked. And I got this wrong initially. I thought I could do it all on my own and I can't. You need someone who is your first follower, unwavering in that regard, to validate. And they're actually the leader, right? So she was a better leader than what I was. And they followed her, not me, which is terrific. So she followed me and they followed her. You need that. You need someone who others to look to, who will follow your lead.
Mate, I love that. And of course, once you find that first follower, well, actually, two questions. How do you know if you found that person? And then my next question is, you want to look after that person like the gold that they are, right?
Totally true on both fronts. So it's funny, right? I'm not sure if I've told this story before, but so when Julia started working with me, and it was obvious on the first day, she was a better natural leader than what I was. And I was like, it kind of jolted me. I'm like, well, how do I, and I called a friend of mine, a mentor of mine. I was like, look, I've got this person. She's brilliant. Like, she's such a good leader. And, you know, the team are following her, not me. And I'm like, how do I feel about, like, what do I do? Is this, you know, what do I do? And he sort of said, look, mate, he said, is she on board with you? You know, like, is she behind you? Or is she trying to take people astray? I was like, no, she's 100% on board with me. She was, then thank your lucky stars, you know? So I very quickly overcame that thing in my head of like, you know, I didn't feel threatened. I just wasn't sure. I was like, she is so much better at this and I don't quite know what to do here. And yeah, he just said, thank you, lucky stars. And she always was. So, you know, I think if you've got that, then just be happy about it. You know, if you've got a superstar dentist, for instance, that others are following, and they're on board with you, be happy about it. Like, just jump in. Don't self-sabotage. Don't try and be the big dog. Don't try and put them under the thumb. Just be jolly glad that they're on board with you. And then reward them well in every sense. You know, let them know that you value them. You know, this is the thing, like, I think there are some people who are worth more than what you can afford to pay them. And it doesn't seem right to me, because there's other people who you pay more than they're worth, right? And I wish it was the other way around, you know. And so you have to try and make it as attractive to them as you can, because they're going to help you move mountains. So if you find that person, then reward them well, treat them well, and do everything you reasonably can to retain them and empower them if you've got that first follower there. Mate,
awesome. That first follower who's going to attract your next followers, and again, as you say, find them, keep them, look after them, and so on. Where does the value come in building the tribe of followers? And, intellectually, we kind of get having more people following is awesome. But how's the dynamic work? How did you find that work in your practice with Julia? Was she able to, naturally talk about the vision of the practice, or did you need to, what was the relationship you had with her as you developed other followers?
I think we were both very clearly, we kind of had met earlier on in our working lives, and then we came back at just the right time for both of us, I think it's fair to say. And, it's interesting because I wear people out just because I'm so full of energy, and I never wore her out. Like, she would always meet me where I was, and she was the one person who was never like, just, Michael, you're too much. Like, and I think that was really cool. And I think by the same token, she used to say, that I was the first business owner that she wouldn't have to try and rev up to get going. Like, I'd come in bounding with ideas and keen to get cracking. So I think there's a natural synergy, natural relationship there. And then she ends up having her first followers. They follow her. So she's got her tribe that are following not me, but her. And she, which is terrific for her too. So I think I think it's super important to have natural opt-in and alignment. So I think Julia and I would have different viewpoints, but we'd always figure it out, right? But our underlying values and what we're trying to achieve is the same. We just had different views occasionally, not that often, to be honest, on how to get there, right? To be honest with you, more times than the other way around, I would end up agreeing with her because she had the better idea than what I did.
Yeah.
But I think there has to be that natural alignment. It never felt like an arm wrestle, ever.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this opting in, it's like, here's what I'm about. Here's what I believe in. Here's my golden rules, right, of how to do business. Here's the thing. And you need someone who naturally, if you're trying to argue the toss over one or two, it's not going to work. You need someone who's like, I can see what you are doing, and I want to be involved with that, like what you're trying to do. So there needs to be an enormously natural fit. If you're convincing people of a certain way, yeah, but this, yeah, but that, yeah, but something else, it ain't going to work. So when you're finding that person, there just has to be a really natural line. So you can just get down to business and you can just get down to work. You need to see things the same way. And when I say things, I don't mean like individual people and go, oh, she's good, they're bad, he's good. It's more, you got to see how to go about business the same way. Yeah. So I think you really need strong natural alignment. There can't be a fundamental clash or a difference of views. And I think that's what I had with Julia, where we saw what made a good business. We saw that the values involved and how to go about it. There was a very natural alignment. So you have competing ideas, not competing philosophy. So we both knew we were trying to get to, but we're like, hey, do we do this idea, that idea? How about we merge the two? So that's the cool stuff. That's what you want to do. But basically, you want to have you both want to get to the campfire on time so you can have the cool campfire chat, not find that you're at the campfire and they're halfway up a hill and you got to go find them.
Oh, mate, that's awesome. And that gives a lot of clarity there. So, ladies and gents, make sure you find your first follower. And we're going to move on to sin number 6, which is the sin of not taking money off the table. This is one I'm super, super passionate about. You've got to take money off the table and create wealth outside the practice, right? Otherwise, you find yourself at the end of your working career relying heavily on an exit to fund retirement and all the things that can go awry in that process. So tell me your thoughts around all of this, mate.
Well, can I actually put this one back to you, Jesse? Because so I've got views, but I think this one is a cool one to ask you for your take on, because I've got my own lens and I did it once and did it well. When you see in your clients and you see the broader profession, you would see this play out a fair bit. So I'm keen to hear from you. What have you seen play out? How have you seen it play well, and how have you seen it play poorly?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. Look, for me, there's 4 financial systems you need in a business, right? One is revenue generation, cash flow maximization is the second, money management being the third, and then a wealth creation system being the fourth. And I think you need all 4 of them. And when you miss that final one, the wealth creation one, your practice will consume every dollar you give it. I mean, you can always find a way to spend it, right? Whether it's a fancy new piece of kit or whatever. The consequence, though, of not taking money off the table is financial difficulty down the track. And I see lots of older dentists. I get to speak to lots of people who are clients and lots of people who are not clients. And I see lots of older dentists getting to the end of their practicing life. They've had an amazing lifestyle all the way through. They've had the fancy holidays. They've driven the Beamers. They've done the whole thing. They've led a consumption lifestyle. And I'm not anti-holidays or cars. I'm not trying to say live like a monk. But I am saying you got to take some of that money that you're earning and quarantine it for wealth creation purposes so that at the other end, you can continue to live comfortably and not rely on the practice sale.
Brother.
The practice sale is uncertain, right? There is inherent uncertainty in that, right?
Totally.
And so I feel very strongly that the sale of the practice should be the cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake. It should not be the cake itself, and you've got to be building wealth outside the practice. So so again, we're going back to maths. Sorry, mate. I feel like I've got a key in my back. You just wound me up and I'm off.
No, you're doing well. Keep going. It's good stuff.
Toy soldiers, right? So the thing is it's not hard mathematics. And now with ChatGPT or Claude or whatever you want to use, it's very simple. But if you know that you want to retire on a certain income, then you can figure out, well, how much capital do I need to have at whatever rate of return to give me that retirement income? Then you go, well, how much capital do I have today? Investment capital, that is. How much investment capital do I have today? Oh, well, not enough. So what's the gap, right? And then you think, well, okay, if I'm going to close this gap, it's a relatively simple process to calculate how much money I need to take off the table each month and invest in whatever investment vehicle I'm choosing to invest in at whatever rate of return it provides me to get there. It's not hard. All it is a discipline. It's all it is.
Hammer, nail, bang. Like, well said. I completely agree with that. And I think, for people listening, just go back and listen to that last 3-5 minutes of what Jesse said. So, I couldn't say it better. I think, the key things that I took out of what you said is business is risky. And I always took the view exactly like you did, that maybe my business will be worth zero at the end. I don't know. Like, now with Uber, a set of taxi plates that you used to pay $250,000 for is now worthless, right? So I needed to take money off the table and invest in non-business assets. So property, real estate, cash, bonds, whatever. But you need to diversify. So the way I like to think about it is you get wealthy consolidating in one thing, so business, dental practice, but you stay wealthy by diversifying, right? So use that one vehicle to get wealthy. Cool, making my money through, great. When you've got that, you need to then spread your risk, spread your eggs through property shares, put it into super, whatever else there. So, if you're just, it's really simple maths. Exactly right. Where am I at now? Where do I need to be? What return do I need? How do I get there? These are very simple sums you can do, and ChatGPT and all those things have made it even easier now. So I think that absolutely the business will swallow up any money that you're prepared to leave lying around. So you need to take it off the table and invest it in things outside of it. So you have a nest egg, and not just, your home, great, but your home, you won't derive you money. It's a nice place to live, but you're not going to earn an income from it. So yeah, pay off your home, but then buy other stuff, buy other income producing assets and assets that go up in value beyond that. And it's so crucial. So take money off the table and invest the jolly stuff for down the track there. And don't rely on the business sale as being, like you said, that's the icing on the cake, which is what it was for me. It was lovely to get what I got, but I was never relying on it as being the thing that's going to, I think that's the thing. You go from nothing, jackpot, but the jackpot isn't always there, so you need to be clever about it. Be clever about it. Put it away for a rainy day, invest, take money off the table.
Every time, mate. And I think the key thing with that is it's not sexy, right? And so I see lots of, by the way, just for legal purposes, this is not financial advice. Consult the appropriate professionals, blah, 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 blah. Don't do anything silly, etc. Right? So that's the key thing. But the thing I want to say here is it is just a simple discipline. And it's a discipline, like we said before, whether you're going to go out and run 10Ks at 4 a.m. or whatever it is. My discipline has been forever. I have always taken money off the table all the time without fail. And that's why, when a relative says what they say, you can think about
they're asking you, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly, right? So anyway, here endeth the lesson. Sorry, I feel a bit preachy there. So sorry, guys, but I feel very strongly about that because the consequence of getting it wrong, catastrophic. All right, let's talk about sin number 7, mate. The sin of trying to convince. So let's talk a little bit about that. This is one I know is right in your wheelhouse, buddy.
Look, it kind of underpins like a few other things. You kind of touched on it a bit. So basically, in terms of staff, right? Like staff are hard. Staff are terrific and they're difficult, right? They're both. So, and I struggle with that an enormous amount. And I think I've said before that like I'm like Vegemite. I'm a strong taste and not everyone likes Vegemite. And I'm out there trying to convince everyone to like Vegemite. It doesn't work, right? So what I figured out was, I was like, do you know what? There's enough people who like Vegemite that I don't have to go finding and trying to convince those who don't. So I really think it's key is to find the people where there's a natural agreement on how to go about things.
Yeah.
Honestly, time spent trying to convince people, it is such a waste of time. And I've done that. I had a hygienist once who was a really good hygienist and a really good person. But my goodness, I had that many stomach ulcers trying to convince her to work the way. Yeah, but this, yeah, but that. It doesn't work. Forget it. Just, you're better off at the start. That's why I think, what does high performance look like in role? And the other list is to have, the golden rules of X. So, every patient leaves with an appointment or whatever else there, treat every patient if they say, make me feel like the most important person I'll see that day. Make that really clear at the start. And then, as I said, say to your team members, before you sign this contract, here's our expectations. I don't want to get 6 months, 3 months, a week, 6 years down the track and then be like, oh, but Michael, I didn't know, I didn't think, I didn't realize. I hate hearing that. I didn't know, I didn't think, I didn't realize. So front end it all and say, if you're going to work this way, we'd love to have you here. If not, that's okay. I'll shake your hand. But you need them to opt in. Say, here's, my view is that a business is like a sandpit, right? Okay, so if the business owner owns the sandpit, they set the rules, right? And if you're playing in their sandpit, then you have to play by their rules. And if you don't like it, you need to go find another sandpit. And if the business owner is really a bad business owner, then there'll be no one playing with them in their sandpit. That's their feedback, right? Okay, if you're, that's the thing. They've got the feedback. They go, heck, it's only just me and everyone else is playing that other cool sandpit. That means, hey, maybe I need to change my rules here. So if you play in that sandpit, you play by their rules, but making those rules really clear from the start and saying, are you up for this and are you up for working this way? And if you're not, happy days. Not everyone likes Vegemite. Not everyone wants to do this, but I can't employ if you don't. So you opt in. I'm not going to convince you. I'm not going to arm wrestle you. You're free to withdraw your labor anytime you want. But I'm not going to get into a philosophical argument about how we do things here. So if you work here, here's the rules. I think they're really fair. A whole lot of people really like them. A whole lot of people are glad they work here. But you need to tell me I am totally up for this and working this way. Otherwise, don't. But opt in, not trying to convince people as to, oh, look, this is how we, oh, yeah, but this. Once you know what you need and want and those sorts of things, they're either on board or they're off. But don't try and convince them. Seek them to opt in and say, hey, I want this too. Not the other way around. And I just think that's pivotal and you'll save yourself so many headaches.
Mate, I don't have
What do you think?
Mate, I agree 1 million, trillion, bazillion % on that. I think, team, yes, your greatest resource, and they can also be the source of your greatest headaches.
Totally.
But if you approach team building the way that you've outlined, with the opt-in process, and if you're clear about the accountabilities and the expectations and, the golden rules of how we do things here, then I think that clarity, like we said earlier, the clarity is kindness, and you're going to find the people who, in your case, naturally like Vegemite, and
100%.
Everyone's loving their Vegemite, and everyone's good. But like you say, when you're trying to put a square peg in a round hole to mix the metaphors, it's not going to work, and it's a frustration not just for you but for them too. And so it's much nicer to be able to see people down the road and say, "G'day, how you going? I wish you well," rather than having this resentment that can build if you try to force the issue.
I think everyone makes the mistake as a business owner once they're trying to convince someone, and it's, I think, like you said, like people want to come to work and do a good job. You've always said that, and I think that's true. But making that clear and getting that opt-in, like I think, if I had my time over and I was to do it again, it would just be, I'd be even clear on, these are the rules. Here's how we play. Do you want to be part of it or not? But if you do, I don't want to come back to this. I don't want to have you back in my office trying to explain it. I don't want you questioning it. It's like, this is it. I've been really clear with you. Don't say afterwards, So I think, just being, the business is hard enough without getting into philosophical wars and battles about what constitutes, the rules of engagement, So I think that being clear in those things and just saying to people, they can withdraw their labour anytime they want, and they do. So if you're working here, you're working my way. And guess what? A whole lot of people love that too, right? Yeah. This is not onerous. A lot of people are like, I want to work that way. They're the people we want, not the ones who want to argue the toss over everything.
Oh, mate, 100%. Mate, I don't have a lot more to add on to that because I think you've just nailed it perfectly. Buddy, we have covered the 7 sins, the 7 deadly sins of business ownership. Any final thoughts or comments you want to mention as we put a bit of a bow on this episode?
I guess, it's funny. I just thought of it, but maybe the bonus 8, which is implement, right? So all those things, if you're listening to this, you're like, hey, that was really good. All right. Guess what? Do something about it.
Yeah.
If you listen to that, implement it, go back, listen to it, write a few notes, so, write them all down and then implement it and go, hey, how can I do that? So do something about it, right? If you've listened to this, don't just let it go, oh, that was a kind of cool listen, they're kind of too clever folk. Is actually, the point of this is that you get something out of it and then you derive a result from that. And you only derive a result from it is if you implement the things you've just heard, you've just learned, and go, I'm going to do that. So I commend anyone listening is to actually go out there and just pick one for starters and go, righto, from now on, I'm going to make sure I implement this, and happy days.
That's a really good point, mate. And so I'm just opening up a little thought bubble at the moment as I'm trying to put a bow on things. I'm probably opening up a loop. But I was reading the other day about the difference between information and knowledge, right? And to cut a long story short, the author of this particular article is making the point that knowledge is information applied, because knowledge is experiential and information is data. And so if you want to take the information that Michael and I have spoken about today and convert that into your own knowledge, the experiential piece, you're going to have to take it to the coalface. You're going to have to take these ideas and implement it. You're probably going to make a boo-boo along the way. I'm sure you did, Michael. I've made a gazillion of them. And so you'll get a lot right, but you'll make some mistakes. But the thing is to adjust, iterate, and keep going, right? So
completely agree. Just on that, so you can consume all the stuff you want, but you got to create too, right? Yeah. So you can consume content, great, but what are you creating? So put it back into the universe, put it back into your business.
100%. Mate, as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you, Michael. This is like one of the many conversations we have offline. So thanks for jumping online and sharing it with the audience today, mate. As always, I enjoy it, and the value you share is immense. So thank you, mate, for coming onto the program.
Thank you very much, Jesse. It's always a pleasure to be on here. I really enjoy it, look forward to it. So enjoy the chats, and thank you very much for having me on.
You're a good man, mate. All right, let's catch up soon.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
See ya.
Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.